By many accounts, Cindyana Santangelo just wanted to feel beautiful. But that desire to look her best may have had a part in what ended up killing her. The 58-year-old actress died after prosecutors say an unlicensed practitioner performed an illegal medical procedure at her home, outside of a hospital or official medical clinic. Authorities accused Libby Adame of administering the fatal injection. Libby, a high school graduate with no advanced medical training, had developed a reputation as the butt lady after doing silicone injections that she had learned in Mexico. She lives in an alternate reality where she is this skilled medical provider, the prosecutor said. But Libby denied ever injecting Cindyana. We're here regarding the death of Cindyana Santangelo. Did you do that procedure? Libby's defense attorney asked her while she was on the stand. No, Libby testified. Do you know who did? The attorney asked. No, Libby said. Today's episode, unfortunately, doesn't include any audio clips from Libby Adame's trial, but we have the transcripts, and what came out in that courtroom is interesting, to say the least. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie. So it's been sweltering here, and boy, am I so relieved that the days of waking up hot and annoyed in the middle of the night are essentially over for me. Because sleeping hot is miserable. You've blamed the thermostat, the mattress, even the person sleeping next to you. But what you have to realize is that it's none of that. It's your bedding. Boll & Branch's summer bedding options are breathable, lightweight, and designed to keep you cool all night long. Their sheets are 100% organic cotton, woven specifically for airflow, not just softness. Unlike synthetic cooling technology or chemically treated fabrics, the cooling is structural. It's literally how the cotton is woven. And 94% of Boll & Branch customers say their sheets get softer with every wash, and I can attest to that. Since switching, it's a completely different experience getting into bed. We've got the signature sheet set on our bed right now, and it's soft without ever feeling stuffy or overheated. The waffle bed blanket lives at the foot of the bed. It's that light layer I actually reach for over a heavier blanket now. And the one that surprised me the most is probably the percale quilted down comforter. It sounds like it should be heavy, but it's really not. It's just incredibly soft and light. I use Boll & Branch, and I will never go back to regular bedding. Sleep cooler this summer with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/court with the code COURT. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/court. Use the code COURT to unlock 15% off. bollandbranch.com/court. Use the code COURT. Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options, no guesswork, and no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Cindyana Santangelo was upset that she had lumps in her butt cheeks, a result of the hormone replacement therapy she was taking as she entered menopause. And so she turned to Libby Adame. At Libby's trial, in which she was charged with Cindyana's murder, Libby claimed after examining her that she couldn't help Cindyana with the lumps, so there was no way she did the injections that day. But the prosecution had a different story to tell the jury, and insisted Cindyana died at Libby's hands. For one, Libby had deleted all the text messages between her and Cindyana, and Cindyana's phone had mysteriously vanished. However, police were able to retrieve some messages from Cindyana's iCloud account. "He told me to call you because you're interested in getting booty done," Libby wrote in one message. "Would it still be numb so I can get my nails done after?" Cindyana wrote in another message, inquiring how long the recovery time would take. "If you have time, get them done in the morning before I get there. That's better," Libby wrote, also encouraging Cindyana to eat a good breakfast before she came over. Cindyana texted a photo of her massage table at her home to show Libby where she would be working. They also agreed on a price in the text messages, $3,500. The defense downplayed the messages. "There was no agreement as to the procedure," Libby's attorney said. "There was an agreement as to the price, and that was because that's the price that Libby would have charged to come and give the consultation to look at her butt." There were no eyewitnesses who actually saw the needle go into Cindyana. "This case has been defended start to finish based upon our statement, Miss Adame's statement that she did not do the injection in this case," her attorney told the jury. "There is no direct evidence of her guilt. She has never admitted to anybody having done the injections. Nobody has ever seen her do the injections." Frank and Cindyana Santangelo had been married 1 year short of a quarter century. In those 24 years together, they had 2 boys, Dante, 20, and Lucien, 18. On March 24th, 2025, Cindyana spent most of the day at their home in Malibu, California. Frank testified that at one point, she made a trip to the bank to withdraw $3,500 in cash for what she said was a butt enhancement. While going through menopause, Cindyana had tried hormone treatment, but it didn't seem to be working, and so she got hormone pellets inserted into her butt. They were helpful, but Frank testified that Cindyana hated them because it gave her lumps on each buttock. He described them at one point as craters and said they appeared around her waist. Cindyana figured that getting butt injections would enhance her butt and make those lumps go away. He said Cindyana was referred to Libby Adame by her friend, who gave her Botox. When Libby arrived at their home, she was late. Libby lived 90 minutes away from Cindyana and Frank, and traffic was bad. Frank remembered Libby's arrival, the chit-chat. He then stayed downstairs for about 10 minutes until Cindyana called him up to show off Libby's tattoos. He noticed his wife was wearing a tube top and an undergarment that had holes cut where the butt cheeks were to make them protrude out. Cindyana was standing right behind the massage table, in between where her makeup table is, and Libby was standing on the other side, Frank testified. "There were definitely bottles of something, and other than that, I don't recall. There was other stuff there, but I went into shock after it all happened." "Did Libby, in your presence, say what she was going to do to Cindyana?" the prosecutor asked. "She was going to fill out those lumps as best as she could with the solution she had," Frank testified. "And did she say whether she was going to do that with a needle or an injection?" the prosecutor asked. "Injections," Frank said. Then the prosecutor asked, "Did you ask any questions about at that point what she was using?" "No," Frank said. "I went downstairs because my dog Luna is a lunatic and she barks at everything, and because my wife would close the door to the massage room, so Luna would get up and start scratching at the door. So I just took her with me and held her with me downstairs." He returned when Libby called out and asked him to bring up watermelon juice, which was Cindyana's favorite. "What's wrong with her?" Frank asked Libby when he brought up the juice. He said he knew something was wrong. "My wife was moving really weird on the massage table, and I noticed when I had walked in, she also had blood coming from each butt cheek. At that point, Libby said, 'Can you get me some rubbing alcohol and cotton balls?' I knew what that was for a, not a spot of blood, but it was running down each butt cheek. Frank did as he was told and got the supplies. He said Libby was focused on cleaning up the blood, as Cindyana then started gasping for air. She couldn't talk. She was flopping on the massage table, contorting her body. "Why is she doing this? What happened?" Frank recalled asking. He said Libby responded, "This has never happened to a client of mine before." "What did you inject in my wife?" Frank said he demanded to know. "Belafil," Libby answered. Frank said he didn't know what that meant, but he knew enough that Cindyana was in danger, so he called 911. "So I was on the phone with the dispatcher from 911, and she said, 'What caused the circumstance? Do you know that?' And I said she was getting some beautification injections. When I walked back in the room, Libby said to me that she thinks she might have something in her car that might help her." Frank said he gently picked up his wife, who was violently thrashing. He placed her on the floor and then moved her closer to help that was coming. By then, Libby had disappeared. "I just saw her pick up her bag and then walk out to leave the house," Frank testified. "Did you see her again?" the prosecutor asked. "No," Frank said. Firefighter paramedic Adam Young arrived at the house at 4:34 p.m. Everyone seemed very animated. She seemed very stressed out. But the general complaint about "I can't breathe," usually that's not good. And the way she appeared pale, cold-skinned, very clammy, with the look of fear on her face, he testified. She was in some sort of compensated shock. Essentially, she had a low blood pressure with elevated heart rate, rapid respiratory rate, so she was breathing quickly, and her heart was beating fast. Her blood pressure was low, so her body was compensating for whatever was going on. She kept stating her complaint was crushing chest pain, as well as she couldn't breathe. She said the pain scale was 10 out of 10, the worst pain she has ever felt in her life. She felt like she was going to die. She mentioned that many times throughout the call. I was with her for an amount of time, and that was one thing she just would not stop relating to me. So during obtaining that information, she related to me that she had a medical procedure where she had injections into her buttocks, each cheek. That's what she told me. Young said he noticed 2 tan bandages on her butt and wondered if at first she was suffering from a severe allergic reaction to the injections, although he noticed that there was no redness or swelling or hives or rash, the usual signs he would expect to see. His next train of thought was maybe Cindyana was having a heart attack, but her condition was too dire for him to administer a drug she might need or swallow an aspirin. All he could do was provide her oxygen and fluids and rush her to the hospital. Frank hurried behind, but it was too late. He never spoke to his wife again. At 6:06 p.m., 3 hours after Libby had first appeared at their door, Cindyana was dead. Frank said doctors comforted him, saying, "Unfortunately, this is the worst part of being a doctor. They told me she didn't make it. They worked on her for a long time, but they couldn't revive her." The Santangelo house became a roped-off crime scene. One thing was mysteriously missing: Cindyana's phone that would have contained Libby's contact information on it. Cindyana always kept the phone right at her side. A detective showed a picture of Libby to Frank in a photo lineup of women to try and identify who had been at their house that day. Frank pointed out Libby. He then logged on to his wife's iCloud account on his desktop computer and shared the messages he found with detectives. The messages showed Libby and Cindyana making pleasantries and setting up a time to talk on the phone. "I'm super excited," Cindyana wrote in one message. In another, she wrote, "Going to the bank. It's 3100, correct? Please don't forget to bring dissolver if you have it." Libby responded by saying, "It's 3500 per session, but you're going to love it. You're not wasting money." The prosecutor asked Frank, "Do you know why your wife wanted dissolver?" Frank testified, "She wanted to get rid of the lumps in her butt any way she could." Cindyana had battled a series of health issues in recent years. Her medical records from the UCLA Cosmetic Surgery Center was 200 pages long, according to the defense. One of her breast implants had ruptured and had been replaced. Cindyana wanted another surgery to fix it and make her breasts more even. One of them was starting to droop and was flattening. Her nipple was discolored. She lived with an autoimmune condition that made her feel lethargic, although Frank testified she was getting better. She also had problems with her digestion and had a condition called gastroparesis, affecting her stomach muscles. And 2 years earlier, she was in the intensive care unit for 9 days due to pneumonia. Despite all of this, Cindyana never had problems breathing before, Frank testified. Under cross, Frank said he saw Libby carrying a black bag when she walked into the house, and that he saw chemicals and supplies on the step stool in the room where Libby had been meeting with Cindyana. He didn't see what was inside Libby's bag. Frank and Cindyana had a surveillance system in their house, which captured a grainy image. "That's the chemical bottle right there," Frank testified. The judge interjected, "It's got like a black cap, and then it's got sort of like a see-through type. It appears to be plastic. Hard to tell." Libby's attorney asked Frank if he saw any medical equipment. "I just saw the bottle, and there was something else on the step stool, but I couldn't make out what it was because my wife was in trauma at that point. I wasn't really focused on that," Frank answered. Does anyone else feel like August is the Sunday of summer? It's the perfect time to hit reset before the autumn rush, and for me, that always starts with my wardrobe. Quince proves you don't need a crowded closet to look incredible. You just need the right pieces. Quince specializes in effortless, high-quality essentials like ultra-soft organic cotton and premium Mongolian cashmere sweaters. I love those. They're beautifully tailored, built to last, and transition seamlessly from morning meetings to dinner. They also have premium stretch denim starting at just $50 with the kind of perfect fit, structure, and weight you'd expect from a luxury designer brand. And everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen so you're paying for quality and not markup. Honestly, my blue and white striped linen high-waisted shorts have been my go-to all summer. I've worn them on repeat. And I still wear my short-sleeve cashmere sweater anytime it's not 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And it's not just apparel. Quince brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel-quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples, essentials, and thoughtfully designed furniture. Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/court. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/court. If you wear glasses or sunglasses, you can likely relate to what I'm about to say. Getting new glasses is a giant pain in the butt. Not to mention, it can be expensive. So what's a scratch here and there? Or even something like a missing screw? You tend to wear out those glasses for as long as possible, putting off the inevitable. But not anymore, because Zenni changes that. Zenni is an online eyewear shop with stylish prescription glasses, sunglasses, and customizable lens options at prices that make it easy to own more than one pair, all starting at under $30. And it's easy. You just go to Zenni.com, pick a frame, enter your prescription, customize your lenses, and they ship right to your door. No store visit, no pressure to buy a certain pair, no time wasted on a commute. And at that price, you stop asking, do I really need new glasses? And start asking, why wouldn't I just get a few? A work pair, a fun pair, a pair that only goes with one outfit. You don't have to justify it. Zenni has over 150,000 five-star reviews. And if you've never bought glasses online, Zenni has a virtual try-on, so you can see exactly how a frame looks on your face before you order. I just got a really cute pair of aviator sunglasses for just $33. And I got the cutest pair of square readers for just $31.95. The aviators I've already worn to the beach and just for everyday wear. And my readers I took with me out to dinner with one of my girlfriends the other night. And when I whipped out those babies to read the menu more clearly, she told me how cute she thought they were. That scratched up pair has done its job. Upgrade today with Zenni. Go to zenni.com/podcast and use the code podcast15 for 15% off your first order plus free shipping on all U.S. orders over $65. The styles sell out, so don't sit on it. That's zenni.com/podcast, promo code podcast15. Libby Adame herself was a fan of plastic surgery. She had plump lips, exaggerated features, breast implants, and liposuction. When she took the stand at her trial, she told the jury that 6 times she herself had butt injections. Libby traveled to Mexico to get the injections. When she returned home to California, the other women at Libby's gym peppered her with questions. "What did you do?" they asked her. "Where did you go?" And Libby told them. She said she wasn't shy about admitting to having work done. She told them about Mexico, where she said Americans could get work done cheaper than in Beverly Hills, and where some procedures were more cutting edge than was allowed in the United States. Libby went as far as to escort her friends to the doctor in Mexico to get the procedures done themselves. This was the original Brazilian butt lift, or BBL, from Colombia, was how Libby described it. She got a cut from the doctor when recruiting new clients. And those friends told another friend, and then it just started growing, Libby testified. Then, after probably a couple of months later, I was going so much, taking so many clients that I would stay there in TJ, like for 2 or 3 days, and then I started working with him after 8 months, 9 months later. Working as an ambassador for the doctor in Tijuana, Mexico, ended up launching Libby's own career. To help the doctor, Libby said she put on rubber gloves and prepared the syringes for him. So he would do half of the butt cheek, she said, and then he will prepare the other one for me. He did one, and I will do the other side. She worked for this doctor for 2.5 years. While there, she underwent training at a small school in Monterrey, Mexico. She testified that she got a diploma. It wasn't clear what kind of diploma this was, since Libby admitted later that she hadn't undergone medical training and was only a high school graduate. But this was the beginning of La Tia. In her circle, Libby became known as the butt doctor, or La Tia, which means the aunt in Spanish. She even went by the handle La Tia on Instagram. Libby testified that she performed more than 2,000 butt injections. Sometimes she did it twice a day, which could earn her $4,000. She was in demand. She was popular among her clients. "I'm in the beauty industry, so I like to help women," she told the jury. And she made a lot of money. She owned multiple cars, including a Porsche, and lived in a big 4-bedroom McMansion house in Riverside, California, that had a pool and horse stables. It was with that reputation that Libby ended up at Cindyana Santangelo's home to evaluate her and see these so-called lumps for herself. It was March 24th, 2025. Cindyana seemed to live a life of luxury. She and her husband Frank lived in a 5-bedroom house in Malibu with a big circle driveway and a grand staircase. Libby recalled admiring their living room with high ceilings and an amazing view of the city and the hill. She noticed Louis Vuitton purses in Cindyana's closet. At trial, prosecutors told the jury more about who Cindyana Santangelo was. In 1989, she was cast as the sexy woman in the music video for Bust a Move by rapper Young MC. In that video, she wore sunglasses and a leather jacket as she danced, shaking her backside in a revealing outfit decorated with 2 little stop signs. Also in 1989, she did the intro on the Jane's Addiction song Stop, saying in Spanish, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have more influence over your children than you do." Later, in August 2003, Jane's Addiction frontman Perry Farrell told Spin magazine, "She was the Latin Marilyn Monroe. We met her and I thought, holy mother, this girl is just gorgeous. I actually wrote it out, but I don't know how to speak Spanish fluently." Cindyana also landed some acting bit roles, like on the TV show Married with Children and ER. She also played an unnamed yoga dancer in Hollywood Homicide, a 2003 movie with Harrison Ford and Josh Hartnett. Fast forward decades later, Cindyana was struggling with her appearance and was feeling down. Libby testified she was depressed. The butt that had caught everyone's attention in Bust a Move was now disfigured. Cindyana had lumps she was desperately trying to get rid of. After chit-chatting with Cindyana's husband Frank and going on a quick tour of the house, Libby said she got to business, an examination. Cindyana changed into a beige-colored faja, which is essentially high-compression shapewear. It looks like something you might see in a Spanx catalog. Cindyana's massage table was set up in her pink and white beauty room, where she kept all of her clothes, shoes, and makeup. I couldn't see the lumps, so that's why she brought the massage bed, because she wanted to lay down on the massage bed so I could see what she was talking about, Libby testified. So where she put her shorts down, I saw that she had a Band-Aid on one of her sides. I asked if she had gotten something done. She said yes. I told her what, and she just said that she went to a salon in Malibu. She got on top of the bed, and as soon as she got on top of the bed, I could see those lumps. They were like the size of bubble gums. They were just popping out. I could see, standing, you couldn't see, but when she laid down, she had a lot of lumps. She said, I feel so depressed with these lumps. She said Cindyana told her that a doctor in LA had screwed her. Libby's diagnosis: the only way to remove those lumps was to either get a butt tuck or undergo a new cutting-edge laser procedure to zap the tissue. Libby claimed she couldn't help Cindyana in that moment. She testified that she pulled down her own garments and showed her butt lift scar when Cindyana asked to see it. She loved my tattoos, and she called Frank to come back, to go upstairs. And she told Frank, Frank, look at her roses. I want tattoos like her," Libby testified. She told the jury that one thing that stood out to her during their meeting was that Cindyana seemed to be in bad health. Libby said she was having a hard time breathing while walking up the stairs. She also cleared her throat multiple times. She called Frank to bring water and later watermelon juice because Cindyana wasn't feeling well. I had asked her when we went upstairs if she was okay because she was already breathing like she needed air. And she says that she had problems, but that it was due to her young years, smoking a lot. But she had quit already. Now she uses the vape, Libby testified. She just kept saying that she was short on breath. And I told her that we should stop the meeting because at 4:30 we had a meeting with the doctor, FaceTime through WhatsApp, and she said okay. And then after I called Frank, and I told Frank to come upstairs again, and he did. And I told him, I don't think she's feeling good. You want to call the doctor or 911? And then he did call 911. One piece of evidence the prosecutors pointed to were Band-Aids covering puncture wounds on Cindyana's butt. Libby denied that those were from injections she did. She argued that wasn't the kind of Band-Aid she normally used when a photo of Cindyana was submitted as evidence. Cindyana, whoever did it, they did them up here. They're too high. I don't know why they did it up here, Libby testified. That's not my work. She said normally she injected her patient in the middle of the butt cheeks, in the fatty part to avoid muscle. Cindyana's injection site was around 3 inches deep. Libby argued hers would have only been 1.5 inches, shallow enough to avoid the patient's muscle, which was where the danger lied. She testified that to do her procedure normally, it required setting up a table and using anesthesia to help dull the pain. She then has to carefully measure the bottle of chemicals. She said she then has to be careful not to hit a vein when she injects. Her point was that this wasn't a quick procedure. It could take up to 2 hours to do an injection. Also, she said you would typically have one person filling and one person injecting. But at Cindyana's, Libby didn't have her assistant, her daughter, with her. She was alone. She had arrived at Cindyana's house at 3:15 p.m. At 4:10, Frank called 911. Libby's defense was that she couldn't have had enough time to do butt injections on Cindyana within that window. She also testified that she hadn't even brought her full medical kit, syringes, gauzes, disinfectant, the product itself, when she went to Cindyana's, which she said was further proof that she hadn't been the one to perform the fatal procedure. She only had a regular bag containing her calendar and appointment book and a tight compression garment for her patients to wear. Libby also testified that she had gotten an arm lift recently and still had her stitches in. But Libby faced fierce cross-examination from the prosecutor. The cross-examination began with Deputy District Attorney Lee Cernick asking the questions. So on March 24th of 2025, you were at the Santangelo residence. Libby agreed. No reasonable doubt about that, correct? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Libby said. But the judge interrupted, saying, don't ask questions with legal terminology in them. So you've been doing these silicone injections how long? The prosecutor asked. Since 2009, Libby said. You like it? Yes, I like helping women. You make them feel comfortable, right? I mean, if they want it and they feel comfortable. The prosecutor countered, I mean, Cindyana was so comfortable and you were in such a comfortable conversation, you agreed to drop your pants and let her take a picture of your behind, right? Yeah, that's normal, Libby said. Under questioning, Libby said she was worth the money she charged. Her patients were repeat customers. They were happy. She obtained her silicone from Colombia that her doctors would order for her. The doctors told her to change the labels on the bottles to disguise it with fake labels because the chemical imported in could not be legally bought in the United States. Libby testified each bottle cost her around $900, and she believed it was synthetic fat cells. She did not know it was silicone. The jury heard Libby say that she received some sort of vague diploma from Mexico when she first took the stand. Now under cross, Libby's credentials were called into question. She admitted she never completed medical school, had no college degree, and never took any anatomy classes. Her highest education was a high school degree. She didn't even know basic CPR. All of that mattered because the precision where Libby injected her patients was important. It needed to be in the right spot because of the muscles in the body. She was not licensed to give out prescription medicine. She did not have medical equipment in case one of her patients had an emergency, and she couldn't monitor anyone's oxygen levels or blood pressure. Do you get patient consent forms? The prosecutor asked. No, Libby responded. Do you tell people you're putting liquid silicone into them? Again, Libby answered no. Do you tell people that silicone can kill them? No, I never tell them, Libby said. But you did realize or find out at some point you were using liquid silicone, correct? Yes, at the end, yes. When you say at the end, what are you talking about? Carissa's case, Libby responded. Cindyana wasn't the first woman Libby was accused of killing. There had been a previous victim, 26-year-old Carissa Rajpal, an aspiring adult film star and influencer from South Africa. Carissa died 5 years before Cindyana. In October 2019, Carissa Rajpal turned to Libby Adame to help her body look better. Carissa was an aspiring adult film actress from South Africa who arrived in California and paid $2,500 each time Libby injected her to make her butt and hips look fuller. Carissa was okay after the first 2 visits. According to media reports, Carissa wanted the procedure recorded to assure her mother back home in South Africa that it was safe. And that recording was shown to the jury during Libby's trial for Cindyana's death. The jury could see Libby and her daughter prepping for the injections. Libby's daughter, Alicia, was a licensed esthetician, which means she was a skincare professional who could do facials, hair removal, and skincare procedures that weren't considered to be medical procedures. She learned a lot from me and also the doctor. She used to help the doctor at the clinic also, Libby testified. Carissa's procedure took place in a children's bedroom at the home of a guy she was seeing. She appeared to be having marriage problems. When you injected that into Carissa Rajpal on the date of this video, July 22nd, 2019, you knew you were putting silicone into her body, right? The prosecutor asked Libby. As I told you that they had told us, it's synthetic fat cells, Libby testified. The prosecutor asked her who they was. The doctors. We never knew it was silicone, Libby answered. So you're putting something into that woman's body that you don't even know what it is? The prosecutor asked. Carissa went into distress while on the homemade operating table and stopped breathing. Libby and her daughter called 911 and then fled as first responders arrived. I stayed until the ambulance got there, Libby testified. Okay, and you told the paramedics what you injected into her? The prosecutor asked. No, they just came and then they told us to move on to the side, and then they started giving her CPR, and then we left after the 911 got there, Libby said. The prosecutor asked her if she got paid. She said no. Carissa's cause of death was a pulmonary embolism from silicone being injected into her butt. According to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, Carissa had been injected with a type of liquid silicone comprising materials commonly found at home improvement stores. Media reports state that the Los Angeles Police Department was then inundated with so many new victims calling in. The department assigned one person whose job was to take the calls. A pattern was emerging of women who had botched medical procedures at the hands of Libby Adame. Libby's daughter had also been present when a third woman died in 2018, authorities said. Kenya Arias died after getting the same procedure in a salon, although prosecutors have never charged anyone because they couldn't determine who had actually held the syringe and injected her. But Libby and her daughter did stand trial for Carissa's death. Libby, who was 51 years old at the time, and her 23-year-old daughter Alicia were charged in August 2021 with murder. According to the San Bernardino Sun, they also faced 3 felony counts of practicing medicine without a certification. But their defense argued that the 2 women couldn't be held criminally liable for Carissa's death. The facts are not in dispute, Libby's attorney Michael Flanagan told reporters as the 2024 trial began, according to the Pasadena Star-News. What's in dispute is what the law says. They reported that he said in his opening statements, "Things went wrong. This is not a case of a cold-blooded killer." Both Libby and her daughter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter for Carissa's death. Carissa's mom said this in her victim impact statements. "Your deed has shattered our family's peace into 1,000,000 shards. I need you to understand the weight of your reckless deed so that you will never repeat anything even remotely like this ever again, please." Libby was sentenced to 4 years and 4 months in state prison, while her daughter's punishment was 3 years and 8 months. But there was a twist. Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge George Lomwell agreed with the defense attorney that Libby and her daughter should receive credit for the time they underwent electronic monitoring following their August 2021 arrests. The judge had stark words for Libby and warned her not to hurt anyone else. Libby was out on probation and treating Cindyana less than a year after her involuntary murder conviction. During her trial for Cindyana's death, Libby claimed she had stopped doing the injections in the United States and only treated women in Mexico. The prosecutor asked her, "So after your conviction and Judge Lamelli said, you are on full notice based on this trial, that if you engage in the conduct you did, you will be charged with murder. You recall that, right?" "Yes, I recall that," Libby testified. "But he never said I couldn't work in Mexico or I couldn't advertise for doctors. In this case, I was advertising to Cindyana. I never did no butt injections." The prosecutor asked her if she is the unluckiest person in the world. The judge interrupted. "Is that a question? Hold on. Is that a question? I'm sustaining that. That's very argumentative." The prosecutor asked, "When you got to the Santangelo residence on March 24th of 2025, as you sit here today, in your mind on that date, you knew that silicone injections kill people, correct?" Libby said yes. "And you arrived to make $3,500 doing silicone injections, right?" the prosecutor asked. Libby held firm and repeated that she never injected Cindyana. "And you went upstairs, and Cindyana had her massage table ready for you to do silicone injections?" "No," Libby said. "She had her massage bed because standing up, you couldn't see those lumps. Her husband told you that she was depressed of her lumps. She never wanted to make her butt bigger. And it's your testimony that you just so happened to arrive after she had already had the injections by someone else?" "That is correct," Libby said. "And she either hid it from her husband or lied to her husband?" Libby hesitated. "Well, yes or no?" "Yeah, she hid it from her husband," Libby testified. Libby claimed that while she was there, Cindyana began having trouble breathing, and Frank called 911. She said he told her it was okay to leave, now that help was on the way. So she did, stopping to get a bite of food on the way home. On redirect, Libby's attorney asked her, "Now, you were asked on cross about, do you think that Cindyana went out and got a butt injection and intended to hide it from her husband?" "I mean, I don't know," Libby testified. "What did she tell you?" her attorney asked. "I mean, she told me that she had got it done, and her husband didn't know because they don't sleep together," Libby said. "Was she depressed?" her attorney asked. "Yes," Libby answered. The prosecution didn't buy it. "If Libby didn't do it, then what? Cindyana lied," the prosecutor told the jury in his closing arguments. "She hid her injections from Frank, the man who knew about her menopause treatments, her breast implant surgeries, the man who rattled off all of her treating physicians in the middle of the night. For whatever reason, she hid those from him, but she somehow lived long enough for Libby to arrive and talked and acted perfectly long enough for Libby to get there." During the trial, there was one little off-the-cuff moment, a somewhat bizarre exchange that I wanted to mention. It stood out in a case that covers appearance and beauty standards. It was when Libby was asked to point out her son in the courtroom. He had been the one to drop her off at Cindyana's that day, which is why that mattered. "Can you identify your son in the courtroom?" the prosecutor asked her. "He's fat," Libby said. "I don't think he would appreciate that," the prosecutor responded. During Cindyana Santangelo's autopsy, a strange substance began oozing out when Dr. Othan Mina, assistant chief medical examiner in Ventura County, cut into the muscle in her buttocks. "I noticed that a substance started coming out that should not be there. It ended up being a thick, clear, viscous substance, and it started kind of in a way bubbling up from both sides. So it started collecting, and then I collected a sample." In fact, he noticed that foreign substance throughout Cindyana's body, in her groin, in her lungs, not just her butt. So I took little samples of the lung tissue so that they can be stained and I can examine them with my microscope. And in the microscope, I could see that the tiny blood vessels, the ones that are next to the tiny air sacs, had red blood cells that were either pushed aside by something clear or replaced by the clear substance. So instead of there being blood in the small vessels, the tiniest ones, there is something replacing or pushing aside the red blood cells, he testified. And by something, was that the same clear viscous liquid you observed in the buttocks of slide 7? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Dr. Mina testified. It's the same substance that is foreign to her body that is now in her vessels, and in here used to be her bladder, uterus, and rectum, so I've removed that. And what I'm showing here is that even in this area, we have collection of the same fluid, the viscous fluid. I'm showing it between the tissue and my forceps that it's collecting here. It's oozing basically out of her pelvic or groin vessels. And in fact, I could collect it with a ladle and it would separate. The blood and the viscous fluid could separate, sort of like oil and vinegar not mixing. Did you remove as much oil as you could from the body? The prosecutor asked. Well, just enough to get samples of it. After I was done, in fact, the next day, I was telling my colleagues about what I had found, and we went back to look at her, and I could demonstrate, and I could still, more was still oozing from inside her pelvis, Dr. Mina testified. Whatever the substance was would help him determine Cindyana's cause of death for her death certificate. Brad Chester was a former LAPD officer who eventually began a new career working as a special agent with the Food and Drug Administration's Office of Criminal Investigations. That's how he got involved in the investigation days after Cindyana's death. On April 3, 2025, the assistant medical examiner gave him Cindyana's blood sample, which Special Agent Chester packed up in a cooler with an ice pack and overnighted to the National Forensic Chemistry Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, to be tested. Belafil was key. Remember, that's what Frank said Libby had told him she had injected into Cindyana, as Cindyana was struggling to breathe on the massage table. Belafil is a brand of injectable filler approved by the FDA that's used for people's faces and hands in small amounts. You couldn't just buy it off the shelf, but Belafil is usually used in doctors' offices and medical spas. Special Agent Chester obtained a certified sample of Belafil from the manufacturer to compare with what was in Cindyana's blood. Chemist Caroline Muckall Kelly, who worked for the FDA's National Forensic Chemistry Center, analyzed the results. Belafil was not in Cindyana's blood, she testified. What was it? Silicone oil. Dr. Mina had the information to rule on the cause and manner of death. My opinion is that her cause of death was silicone pulmonary embolism due to cosmetic gluteal intramuscular silicone injection, he told the jury. Later, he explained in more common terms what that means. Basically, what I said is that she was injected with silicone. That's the last part of the cause of death. And she was injected into the buttocks. And as I said, it was injected into the muscle, which has more arteries and veins than compared to the fat. So because it was in there, that silicone was picked up by the veins and then returned via larger veins and eventually to the heart on the right side. So that's the embolism part. Embolism is when something blocks a blood vessel, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So the silicone, along with the blood, was returned to the right side of the heart and then pumped into the lungs. So once the silicone and blood were being pumped into the lungs, it then makes it as far as possible down, smaller and smaller vessels, until it reaches those areas where the gas exchanges could take place, or it blocks the vessels before it gets to that place. So that's now the pulmonary embolism part. So the blood vessels of the lungs have been embolized. So in the same way, the silicone has made it to the lungs and prevented blood from reaching the lungs. The prosecutor asked, "Is it fair to say that based on your observations, the The small blood vessels did not have red blood cells in them. They had silicone instead, and that blocked the victim from being able to absorb any oxygen? Yes, that's a way to explain it. Is their body becoming deprived of oxygen at that point? Right, Dr. Mina testified. They feel like they cannot get enough oxygen and then eventually go into cardiopulmonary arrest. Their heart stops pumping? Yes, eventually, Dr. Mina said. The heart itself does not get sufficient oxygen, and then it will stop. Given your examination of the decedent and the amount of silicone in her lungs, would that be consistent with the history of her experiencing shortness of breath and becoming non-responsive within a few hours of the injections? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Dr. Mina answered. From my review, she felt short of breath with chest pain almost right away. And then the paramedics came to her home, took her to the hospital. That continued in the hospital. She was still awake, but getting worse and worse. And eventually she arrested, and they could not bring her back. As for the manner of death, homicide. He testified, homicide means that somebody died at the hands of another person. So in this case, there was an action performed that appeared to be a medical procedure, but also in addition to information that I got from Detective Brown, the procedure was performed by somebody without a medical license and who has performed such procedures before and knew to not perform such procedures. This reached a level of negligence that, medically speaking, was a homicide. Dr. Mina's testimony was also important because it established that Cindyana's injection marks under her Band-Aids were fresh. He testified that the injection points were about 2 to 3 inches under the skin. I've looked into many bodies, and this looks like fresh bleeding, he said. It hasn't clotted, it hasn't gone into other tissues, and also on the skin, it hasn't yet bruised, other than at the very next to the injection sites. So after a while, it should become purple, blue, and bruised. And you didn't see that bruising here, correct? Correct. The jury knew Cindyana wasn't in good health, had been hospitalized for pneumonia, and had been under the knife for multiple cosmetic procedures. Dr. Mina did attribute those past medical problems to her death. He said he noticed little lesions throughout her lungs, but that would not be responsible for killing her, noting he saw both healthy and unhealthy lung tissue. She had a lot of normal lung tissue also, and perhaps her lung function was somewhat diminished, but she was not in the process when she was undergoing this procedure of dying or needing to be admitted to a hospital or requiring oxygen, he testified. Cindyana had undergone 12 breast surgeries and had implants. Even though she had a history of leaking breast implants in the past, she did not die from that in March 2025, according to court testimony. As the testimony ended, both sides made closing arguments. When Frank was on the phone with 911 and Libby was right there, Cindyana was gasping, not breathing normally, not swallowing normally, laying on her stomach and drooling. And so he moves her on her side. And that's when Frank said the defendant said, "Wait a minute, I think I have something in my car to help," the prosecutor told the jury. She doesn't know CPR. She doesn't have a blood pressure cuff. She doesn't have an oxygen monitor. She doesn't have anything in her car to save anyone's life. What she does is for the second time in her life, while someone is laying on the ground dying, she thinks of herself and she thinks of getting away and of hiding. And that's exactly what she did. Did Libby Adame know that doing this could kill someone? And did she do it anyway? Did she know better? This is a resounding yes, ladies and gentlemen, based on a totality of the evidence. Justice is you coming together and looking at the facts and looking at the law and holding her responsible and telling her she is not above the law, not anymore, that she is guilty of murdering Cindyana Santangelo and committing unlicensed practice of medicine. In his closings, Libby's attorney brought up her conviction in the death of Carissa Rajpal. He said Carissa was the first person out of thousands who had ever died. I'm not meaning that to go to the probability of death from this procedure, but Miss Adame did that procedure on Rajpal, and Rajpal died of a silicone embolism. We've never contested that. We're not contesting it. Ms. Adame gave the fatal injection that Rajpal died from. He accused the prosecutor of wasting time and wanting to go into all the gory details about Carissa's death. She wants to make this very dramatic. Libby did that, and I asked Libby what happened, and both she and her daughter, who participated in that fatal day and were both convicted of involuntary manslaughter, to this very day, they can't figure it out. He said Libby was adamant she did not inject Cindyana. Ms. Adame has the right to not be convicted unless she's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, he told the jury. And so, who would the jury side with? At the end of the trial, Libby Adame was convicted a second time. She was found guilty of second-degree murder and practicing medicine without a license. Cindyana's husband, Frank, gave a heartbreaking statement at Libby's sentencing hearing. We've had our whole life turned upside down. I'll never have my best friend, my wife, again. My son Lucci didn't have his mom to see his 18th birthday, or his graduation, or going to college. My boys won't have their moms at their weddings or anything like that. So the damage done by this woman and her neglect for the law and medicine, it's incredibly insane that somebody would choose to make that choice. Libby was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And that's all for this episode. This episode was researched and written by Gabrielle Rusin. To hear these episodes without the ads and to hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, check out my Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.
Hello, and welcome to Pluto Phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, just stream it for free on Pluto TV, where all your blockbuster favorites are landing all summer long. Catch Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Fantastic.
The Matrix Trilogy.
Welcome to the real world.
Mean Girls.
Shut up.
Titanic.
I'm the king of the world.
And so much more. For Showtime's press nothing. They're free 24/7.
That is so fetch.
On Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.